AITA for walking out after my wife planned to humiliate me in front of our friends? I'm Alexander, 42, and I had been married to Bridget for 12 years the night everything finally came apart. People used to describe us as solid. I think what they really meant was that we rarely fought in front of anyone. Bridget was charming, quick, and good at making a table feel alive. I was the calmer one. I folded kitchen towels the same way every time, saved receipts in the junk drawer, and believed that keeping my voice down meant I was handling things like an adult. For years, I confused a quiet marriage with a healthy one. When Bridget and I first got together, her humor was one of the things I loved most about her. She could rescue an awkward dinner with one line. She remembered details from stories people had told months earlier and used them to make everyone feel included. Back then, she made people laugh with me in the room. Later, she made them laugh at me. It happened slowly enough that I kept finding excuses for it. Once, I mixed up the date of an anniversary reservation. I caught the mistake a week ahead of time, fixed it, and thought that was the end of it. Bridget turned it into a story she told for 3 years. Alexander needs adult supervision for romance, she would say. If I didn't manage him, we'd celebrate our anniversary in November. Our anniversary was in May. The first few times, I laughed too. It was easier. Then she started correcting me in front of people even when the correction didn't matter. I would be telling a story and say something happened on a Thursday. It was Wednesday, she would cut in. I would pause, lose my place, and she would smile like she had rescued everyone from misinformation. At a birthday dinner, she told a group of friends that I was lucky she had low standards and good lighting. Everyone laughed. I smiled because all eyes were on me and I didn't want to become the man who couldn't take a joke. On the drive home, I said, "That one bothered me." She looked out the passenger window. "Which one?" "The low standards joke." "Oh, come on. Nobody thought I was serious." I did. That earned a sigh. "You make everything heavy." That became her favorite way to end any conversation about respect. I made things heavy. I was too serious. I was overthinking. She was allowed to have a personality. Everyone knew she was kidding. The problem was that her jokes kept getting sharper while my objections kept getting quieter. About 2 years before the dinner, I finally told her directly, "Do not use our marriage as material in front of people." We were standing at the kitchen counter. She was scrolling through her phone while I spoke. I remember that because I kept waiting for her to look up. "I'm not asking you to stop being funny," I said. "I'm asking you not to make me smaller so other people laugh." She glanced at me then. "You hear yourself, right?" "Yes." "You sound like you're preparing a legal argument." "I'm trying to be clear." She set the phone down and crossed her arms. "Then stop giving me material." I should have understood that answer better than I did. Instead, I apologized for the timing of the conversation because she said I had ruined the evening. Adrian started appearing in our conversations around the same period. He was someone Bridget knew through mutual friends. He was 41, separated, and always available to tell Bridget that she was funny, misunderstood, or too much for boring people. At first, I barely noticed him. Then Bridget started repeating his opinions to me. "Adrian says some men actually like confident women. Adrian thinks couples get stale when they stop challenging each other. Adrian said I should never shrink myself just because someone else is insecure." The first time I asked why Adrian was commenting on our marriage, Bridget laughed. "He's not commenting on our marriage. You just quoted him commenting on our marriage." "No, I quoted something he said in general. You said he was talking about me." She gave me a patient smile that felt more insulting than anger. "See, this is what he means. You hear one man's name and turn it into a threat." I wasn't afraid Adrian would steal my wife. I was bothered that she was using another man's approval as a weapon and then calling me insecure for noticing. I told her that. She said, "I can't control the stories you make up in your head." There was no single moment when I decided our marriage had become bad. It was more like living beside a slow leak. Every small humiliation seemed too minor to justify tearing open the wall, so I kept putting towels down and pretending the floor wasn't warping. The restaurant dinner was supposed to be easy. There were 8 of us at a table on a patio under string lights. The reservation was under my name, and the restaurant had my card on file, because they required one for a large party. Bridget had helped choose the place. She spent 20 minutes getting ready while I stood in the bedroom doorway holding the card I had bought for her. It was for our upcoming anniversary. I had planned to give it to her after dinner. Just the card, not the actual gift. The gift was an expensive watch she had pointed out months earlier and then pretended to forget. I left the card on the kitchen counter when she called from the bedroom. Are you going to stand there all night? Or are we leaving? At dinner, Bridget was in one of her performing moods. She had 2 glasses of wine before the entrees came. Not enough to lose control, just enough to make cruelty sound spontaneous. At first, the jokes were small. She corrected the way I described a movie. She told Graham that I alphabetized the spice rack, which wasn't true, but everyone laughed anyway. When I ordered sparkling water, she said, "Careful, Alexander. Don't get reckless." Graham gave me a brief look. He knew some of the history, but not all of it. Sienna tried to change the subject by asking another couple about their renovation. Bridget redirected the conversation within 30 seconds. Someone mentioned a weekend trip. Bridget leaned back in her chair and said, "Alexander likes everything small and safe." She smiled when she said it. There was a beat of silence before 2 people laughed. I looked at her. What does that mean? She took a sip of wine. It means you're cautious. That isn't how you meant it. Here we go. Sienna said, "Bridget, come on." What? Bridget asked. He knows I'm kidding. I could feel the table doing that uncomfortable social calculation people do when they don't want to pick a side. One person stared at the menu even though we had already ordered. Another drank water. Graham's jaw tightened. Then the appetizers were cleared, and Bridget lifted her wine glass. "I want to make a toast," she said. Someone groaned playfully. Bridget waited until everyone looked at her. "To marriage," she said, "and to the men who stay loyal no matter what." I knew before she finished that it was aimed at me. She turned slightly in her chair. Some husbands are proof that loyalty and self-respect are not the same thing. The laughter came in pieces. One person laughed immediately. Someone else followed because the first person had. Sienna gave a short, nervous laugh and then looked down. Graham didn't move. Bridget smiled at me over the rim of her glass. It wasn't the line itself that hit hardest. It was the confidence behind it. She knew I would sit there. She knew I would keep the evening smooth. She had built the joke around my silence. I placed my napkin beside my plate. "Do you want to take that back?" The table went still. Bridget's smile widened. "Don't ruin dinner just because you can't take a joke. I'm giving you a chance to take it back." "Oh my God, Alexander." She looked around the table as if asking everyone to witness how difficult I was being. Everyone knew what I meant. I didn't. "You're exhausting when you decide to be deep." That was the moment I stopped trying to save the atmosphere. I waved the server over and asked for the bill. Since the reservation was under my card, the restaurant had already authorized it. I paid for Bridget and me and covered the portion I had agreed to handle for the shared appetizers. I did not leave everyone else stranded, and I did not use money to create a scene. Bridget watched me sign the receipt. "You're seriously leaving?" "Yes." "Because of a toast?" "Because you meant it." She laughed once and shook her head. "Unbelievable." I stood, thanked the table, and left before she could turn my anger into the headline. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. I ordered a rideshare and stood beneath the restaurant awning while people walked past me toward the patio. My phone buzzed twice. The first message was from Graham. "You good?" The second was from Bridget. "Nice performance." I saved the rideshare receipt without knowing why. Maybe habit. Maybe part of me already understood I would need a clean record of the night. Bridget came home almost an hour later. I was in the kitchen, rinsing a glass. The anniversary card was still on the counter where I had left it. She dropped her keys hard enough that they slid against the bowl by the door. "You embarrassed me," she said. I turned off the faucet. "I embarrassed you. You walked out in front of everyone. You made a toast about me having no self-respect. It was a joke." "No. It was contempt with a punchline." She rolled her eyes. "There you go again. I asked you privately to stop using our marriage as material. And I have to walk on eggshells because you've decided every word is abuse." "I didn't use that word." "You didn't have to. You always do this. You stay calm so I look crazy." That sentence told me more than she intended. I stay calm because shouting won't make you listen. You stay calm because you like feeling morally superior. I looked at the card on the counter, then back at her. The problem isn't that you made one bad joke. That is exactly what this is. The problem is the pattern. She picked up the card. "What's this?" "Nothing now." She opened it anyway. It was blank except for the printed anniversary message inside. I had planned to write in it later. She tossed it back down. God, you're dramatic. Her phone lit up beside her hand. She had message previews enabled. I did not touch the phone. I did not lean closer. I didn't have to. The name at the top was Adrian. The preview read, "Did he finally learn his place?" For a second, neither of us moved. Then Bridget snatched up the phone and flipped it face down. I said, "Why does Adrian think there's a place I'm supposed to learn?" Her face changed, but only for a moment. "You were reading my messages?" It appeared on the screen. "You were watching my phone. It was 6 inches from your hand. That is such an invasion. Answer the question. I don't owe you an explanation for a private conversation after you humiliated me in public." I almost laughed at the reversal, but nothing about it was funny. "You're calling my leaving humiliating?" Yes. Everyone was uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable before I left. Because you made them uncomfortable. There was no point continuing. She had already decided which version of the night she needed. I picked up the anniversary card, tore it in half, and dropped it in the trash. Bridget stared at me. "Wow. I'm sleeping in the guest room." "Fine." She said it like she expected me to come back and apologize before morning. I lay awake in the guest room with the lights off. I could hear cabinet doors closing in the kitchen and Bridget moving around the hallway. At some point, the house went quiet. My phone buzzed at 12:37 a.m. The message was from Bridget. "Tonight went better than I thought. He looked humiliated but still paid. Told you he wouldn't do anything." I read it twice. Then a third time. A minute later, the message disappeared from the thread. She had unsent it. But I had already taken a screenshot. My hands were shaking, not because I wanted to hit anything or scream, but because the last piece had finally clicked into place. The dinner had not gotten out of hand. It had gone according to plan. If I got angry, Bridget could call me controlling. If I stayed quiet, she could prove to Adrian that I would tolerate anything. If I left, she could say I abandoned her over a joke. Every possible reaction gave her a story. I took a screenshot showing the time, the sender, and the text. I saved it in 2 places. Then I wrote down exactly what had happened at dinner while I could still remember the wording. I noted the time we arrived, who was seated where, what Bridget said, when I paid, when I left, when I saw Adrian's preview, and when the wrong message came through. I did not open her phone. I did not guess her passcode. I did not search her accounts. I documented what had been placed directly in front of me. Then I called Graham. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding half asleep. "What happened?" She sent me a text meant for Adrian. "What did it say?" I read it to him. There was a pause. Screenshot. "Yes." "Save it somewhere she can't access." I did. "Good. I want to go wake her up." "No." "She planned it." "I know." "She wanted me humiliated." "I know." His voice was steady now. "Listen to me. She set a trap. Don't decorate it for her." "So what do I do?" "Screenshots, dates, receipts. Nothing dramatic. You can be furious after you're protected." I sat on the edge of the guest bed. "I don't know if I can stay here tonight." "Then don't. Pack what you need. Go somewhere safe. Send 1 message. Keep everything else in writing." "I feel ridiculous." "You are not ridiculous." Everyone laughed. Some of them laughed because they were cowards. That's different. I looked toward the closed bedroom door across the hall. Graham continued, "Do not empty accounts. Do not threaten her. Do not post anything. Do not give her the explosion she ordered. What am I supposed to do about the marriage? You don't have to solve 12 years at 1 in the morning. You just have to stop volunteering for another round." I packed a suitcase quietly. Clothes, toiletries, medication, chargers, a few documents from the desk, and the watch receipt from the junk drawer. I left everything that belonged to Bridget. I took photos of the items I was bringing with me, not because I expected a fight over shirts and shoes, but because Graham had put me into a practical frame of mind. Before I left, I checked our shared accounts. Our checking account was used for the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, and household expenses. I did not touch it beyond confirming the current balance. The rest was different. The anniversary trip had been booked on my personal card. The watch was on my personal card. Several optional subscriptions were in my name. Bridget had a secondary card on one of my accounts for convenience, not necessity. I did not make changes that night. I sent 1 message. "I'm not arguing for a place in a marriage where I'm treated like a punchline. I'll be staying elsewhere. Necessary communication can stay in writing." Then I left. The short-term rental I found was plain and quiet. It had a small kitchen, a couch that looked like it had been chosen for durability, and a bedroom with one lamp that hummed when I turned it on. I set my suitcase on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed until sunrise. Bridget called 11 times before 8 in the morning. The first voicemail was angry. "You cannot just disappear because you're mad. We are married. Come home and act like an adult." The second was sharper. "You're proving exactly what I said. You punish me whenever I don't behave the way you want." By the fifth voicemail, her tone had changed. "I was drinking. I sent a stupid text. You know how Adrian talks." By the eighth, she was crying. "I don't understand how you can throw away 12 years over one night." The last one was quiet. "Please call me before you do something extreme." I did not call. I texted that I was safe and would communicate about necessary household matters in writing. Then I called a lawyer for a consultation. The meeting did not turn me into some legal strategist. It did something more useful. It told me where the lines were. I was advised not to remove money from shared accounts, not to interfere with household obligations, and not to cancel anything Bridget reasonably needed for daily life without understanding the consequences. I followed that advice. I was also told I was not required to keep funding optional luxuries on my personal accounts. That afternoon, I canceled the anniversary trip. The confirmation email arrived 2 minutes later. Most of the cost was refundable. The cancellation fee was irritating, but still cheaper than taking a romantic trip with someone who had privately celebrated humiliating me. I returned the watch the next morning. The sales associate asked if there was anything wrong with it. "No," I said. "Wrong occasion." She processed the return without another question. I kept the receipt. I removed Bridget as an authorized user from my personal secondary card after confirming she had access to our shared household account for necessities. I canceled 2 optional subscriptions I paid for and changed the delivery address on a monthly service that was mine. I did not shut off utilities. I did not leave her without groceries. I did not touch her money. I stopped paying for the stage. Then I called Meredith. My sister is 3 years older than me and has never been impressed by explanations that begin with "it's complicated." She listened without interrupting while I told her about the toast, Adrian's preview, and the wrong text. When I finished, she said, "How long has she been doing this?" "Doing what?" "Making you the cost of admission." I rubbed my forehead. It wasn't always like this. I didn't ask if it was always like this. I should have handled it sooner. Yes. Her bluntness stung. "You could pretend not to agree." "No. You need somebody to stop helping you pretend." I stared at the blank wall across from the rental's kitchen table. I thought not reacting was the high road. Sometimes it is. And sometimes it is just standing still while someone throws things at you. I didn't answer. Meredith softened slightly. "You have been protecting her reputation from her own behavior." I didn't want people in our marriage. She put people in your marriage. She seated them at the table and handed them lines. That was difficult to hear because it was true. She said, "You do not owe privacy to a lie being told about you." I don't want revenge. Good. Revenge makes people sloppy. Leave with your name intact. Bridget began shaping the public story before I had even finished canceling the trip. The first sign was an Instagram story. No names. Just white text on a gray background. "Fragile people will punish you for having a personality." Another appeared an hour later. Some people confuse control with boundaries. Then mutual friends started texting. One wrote, "Heard you moved out. Everything okay?" Another said, "Bridget's really upset. Maybe you two should talk before this gets bigger." One person told me directly, "She says you left because she made one joke." I replied to none of them except Graham. He sent, "She's building the version she needs." I wrote back, "I know." He asked, "You going to respond?" "Not yet." That evening, Sienna texted me, "Can I call?" I considered saying no. Then I agreed. Her voice sounded hesitant. "I don't know what's happening," she said. "Bridget says you're punishing her." I moved out. "She said you canceled a trip." I did. "She said you cut her off financially." I did not. There was a pause. "She said her card stopped working." She was an authorized user on my personal card. "She has access to our shared household account, and every required bill is being paid." "Oh, she left that part out?" "She made it sound like you froze everything." "I didn't." Sienna exhaled slowly. "I laughed at dinner." "I remember. I thought you two had that kind of marriage." What kind? The kind where you tease each other. We don't. I know that now. I waited. She said, she told us before dinner that you had been jealous lately. My grip tightened around the phone. What exactly did she say? That Adrian was just a friend, but you were becoming controlling about it. She said you might act weird if his name came up. She gave you the conclusion before the evidence. I guess she did. Did she say anything about planning the toast? No, not to me. I have a text she accidentally sent me after dinner. Another silence. What does it say? I read it to her. Sienna whispered, "Oh my God." She also received a message from Adrian asking whether I had learned my place. Alexander, I didn't know. I believe you didn't know the whole story. That doesn't make me feel better. It shouldn't. She accepted that without arguing. I should have said something at dinner. Yes. I'm sorry. I did not tell her it was fine. It wasn't. I said, thank you for saying that. Before we ended the call, she told me Bridget was planning to be at a casual gathering that weekend with most of the same people from dinner. She had been telling everyone I abandoned her because she made one sarcastic comment. I think she expects you not to come, Sienna said. I wasn't invited. You were. Graham said you were. I called Graham. He confirmed it. The gathering was at another friend's place. Nothing formal. Just drinks, food, and an attempt by the social circle to process what had happened without admitting that was what they were doing. I don't love this, Graham said. Neither do I. She'll try to provoke you. I know. Then why go? Because she's using their silence as proof. You don't owe them a trial. No, but I'm done letting her speak for me. He was quiet for a moment. Bring only what matters. I will. Do not turn it into a slideshow. I won't. Do not read private messages that have nothing to do with the lie. I won't. And if she starts screaming, I leave. Good. For the next 2 days, Bridget sent messages that moved between accusation, apology, and negotiation. You are blowing this out of proportion. Adrian was joking. I shouldn't have sent that message. You don't understand the context. You are humiliating me now. Come home, and we can fix this privately. That last one almost worked on me. For 12 years, privately, had meant I brought up a problem, Bridget dismissed it, and then we both protected her image in public. I wrote back. I tried privately. You used that privacy to build a public lie. Necessary communication can stay in writing. She responded immediately. You always have to sound like a lawyer. I did not reply. The gathering was on Saturday evening. I arrived alone. Graham met me at the door. You can still leave, he said quietly. I know. Inside, the room had the strained warmth of people pretending they were not waiting for a confrontation. There were drinks on the coffee table, but few people were touching them. Someone had put out chips and a bowl of dip. A television played silently in the corner. Bridget was sitting on the couch. She looked tired, but carefully so. Her hair was pulled back. She wore no visible jewelry. She had positioned herself beside Sienna, who looked uncomfortable. When I entered, conversation stopped. Bridget gave a small laugh. Well, he showed up. I nodded to the room and took a chair near Graham. One of the friends tried to restart a conversation about a baseball game. It lasted less than a minute. Bridget leaned forward. I guess we're all going to sit here and pretend this isn't happening. No one answered. She looked at me. Are you here to punish me in person now? No. Then why are you here? To correct the story. She shook her head. The story is that I made one joke and you abandoned your wife. No, that is your version. It is what happened. You made a planned public humiliation and then accidentally told me it went better than expected. Her face tightened. I was drunk. You were clear enough to describe the result. That text was taken out of context. Then give the context. She looked around the room. This is exactly what he does. He turns everything into an interrogation. I took out my phone but kept it in my hand. I'm not asking anyone to take my word for it. Bridget stared at me. You're really going to show private messages? I'm going to show the messages directly connected to the lie you're telling. You don't have the right. You told everyone I left over one joke. Because you did. I placed my phone on the coffee table. No, I left because the joke had a script. No one moved at first. Then Graham picked up the phone and read the screenshot. He already knew what it said, but I had asked him to verify it before anyone else handled the phone. He passed it to the person beside him. The room became very quiet. The screenshot showed Bridget's name, the time, and her message. Tonight went better than I thought. He looked humiliated but still paid. Told you he wouldn't do anything. Sienna covered her mouth. Someone muttered, Jesus. Bridget stood. He's leaving out what happened before that. What happened before that? I asked. You had been cold for weeks. I asked you to stop comparing me to Adrian. Because you were jealous. I asked why another man was discussing my marriage. He was supporting me. By asking whether I had learned my place. Her eyes flicked toward the phone. You don't have that message. I saw the preview on your screen. So there's no proof. I wrote it down that night. I'm telling them what I saw. She laughed sharply. Convenient. I swiped to the next screenshot. It was an older text exchange between Bridget and me. I had written, please do not bring up private parts of our marriage at dinner tonight. I'm serious. Her response had been, then stop giving me material. I had not remembered saving it. Apparently, I had taken a screenshot months earlier after another argument and buried it in a folder. I showed that one too. Then one final message. It was from Bridget after I had confronted her about telling friends I was controlling. I had written, I'm not asking you to change your personality. I'm asking you not to insult me and call my reaction control. She replied, people think you're controlling because you don't like me having a personality. Those were the only messages I showed. No intimate details. No unrelated arguments. No private complaints about family. Just the setup, the prior boundary, and the way she had framed my objection for other people. Bridget looked around the room. You're all seriously buying this. Sienna spoke first. You told us he was jealous before dinner. Because he was. You told us to expect him to react. Because he always reacts. I almost smiled at the absurdity of that. At dinner, Bridget had mocked me because I supposedly never did anything. Now she claimed I always reacted. Sienna looked at the screenshot again. You didn't tell us the joke had a script. It didn't. Then why did you text that it went better than you thought? Bridget's face flushed. I was venting. To Adrian? Someone asked. She turned toward the voice. He is my friend. Graham said. Friends don't ask whether someone learned his place. Bridget pointed at me. This is what he wanted. He wants all of you to think I'm cruel because he can't handle honesty. I stood, not because I wanted to loom over her, but because I was done sitting through another performance. I didn't leave because you were honest. Oh, please. I left because humiliating me was the goal. You're humiliating me now. No. You humiliated me for applause. I'm correcting the lie you told afterward. She stared at me as if she had never considered that I might say the truth without shouting it. One of the men at the dinner cleared his throat. I laughed, he said. I thought it was just your thing. It wasn't, I said. He nodded, uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Another friend remained silent. His wife looked at the floor. Not everyone apologized. Not everyone suddenly became brave. A few people looked irritated that they had been forced to choose between the easy story and the documented one. That was fine. I had not gone there to win unanimous approval. I picked up my phone. Bridget said, so that's it? You come in here, show everyone messages, and walk away. Yes. 12 years and you just walk? Number 12 years is why I tried privately first. Her expression changed then. Not to regret. To panic. The trip, she said. You canceled it to punish me. I canceled a romantic trip I paid for after learning you planned to humiliate me. And my card. You are no longer an authorized user on my personal card. The shared account is active. Required bills are paid. You're making me sound like some kind of dependent. I'm stating facts. You returned the watch too, didn't you? I hadn't told her about the watch. Apparently, she had found the receipt missing from the junk drawer or seen the refund on my personal account before access changed. Yes. She laughed, but her eyes were wet. Of course you did. I did not feel satisfaction watching her realize the optional life she treated as guaranteed was gone. I felt tired. The real consequence was not the trip or the watch. It was that the room no longer belonged to her version of events. People were looking at her differently. Not with hatred. That would have been easier for her to dismiss. They were looking at her with doubt. Sienna stood and moved away from the couch. Bridget noticed. You too. Sienna swallowed. I laughed because I thought you two had that kind of marriage. We did. No, I said. You did. Bridget's eyes snapped toward me. I continued. I asked you to stop. That means we did not have an agreement. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I turned to leave. Behind me, Bridget said, Adrian understands what I've been dealing with. I stopped at the doorway. I'm not competing with Adrian for respect in my own marriage. You're threatened by him. No, he was never the real problem. That was the last thing I said before leaving. Adrian contacted me 2 days later. His message was brief. Can we talk? I nearly ignored it. Then I agreed to a call because I wanted to know whether there was anything else I needed to document. He sounded defensive from the beginning. I was just being supportive, he said, by asking if I learned my place. There was a pause. She made it sound like you were controlling. You enjoyed the story. I didn't know she was setting you up at dinner. You knew she wanted me embarrassed. I thought it was banter. That phrase seems to do a lot of work for people. He exhaled. I didn't ask to be dragged into this. You stepped into it willingly. She told me you checked her phone. I saw a message preview. I never opened her phone. She said you monitored her. She lied. Another pause. This is messier than what she told me. I'm sure it is. He sounded less confident then. She made it sound like you were unstable. And now I think she used me to make you jealous. She didn't make me jealous. What did she make you? Done. Adrian contacted Bridget after that call. I know because she sent me 6 messages in 10 minutes. What did you say to him? You had no right to involve him. He was my friend. You're turning everyone against me. This is emotional abuse. You planned this. That last message was almost impressive. I replied once. I did not contact Adrian. He contacted me. Do not message me about anything unrelated to separation or required household matters. Adrian stopped responding to Bridget soon afterward. Sienna told me later that he had said, I didn't sign up to be part of a marriage fight. Bridget apparently told him, you were the only one who understood me. He replied, no, you used me to make him look small. I did not know whether his sudden moral clarity was real or whether he simply hated being exposed as a prop. It didn't matter. He was never the prize. The separation moved forward. Bridget continued sending long messages at night. Some blamed me. Some blamed Adrian. Some blamed our friends for turning on her. A few contained apologies, but they were always followed by a defense. I'm sorry I hurt you, but you know I use humor when I feel trapped. I'm sorry the text sounded bad, but you had been distant. I'm sorry everyone misunderstood, but you should not have shown them. She was sorry for the consequences, not the choice. I kept communication in writing. When she called repeatedly, I let it go to voicemail. When she sent emotional bait, I answered only the practical question buried inside it. Are you really ending our marriage because I made one mistake? And also, when are you coming for the rest of your clothes? I'll collect the remaining clothes Saturday at noon. You're cold. Saturday at noon works. Graham will be with me. You're trying to intimidate me by bringing him. He will remain outside unless needed. You always need an audience. No response. The day I collected the rest of my things, the house looked almost exactly the same. My mug was still in the cabinet. The towels were folded the way I had always folded them. The anniversary card was gone from the trash. Bridget stood by the kitchen counter with her arms crossed. You really want strangers deciding our marriage? They're not deciding anything. You showed them private messages. You told them a public lie. So that justifies humiliating me? I showed 4 messages. You made me look manipulative. I showed what you wrote. She looked toward the window. I was angry. You were pleased. That's not fair. It was your wording. She started crying then, quietly at first. A year earlier, that would have ended the conversation. I would have stepped closer. I would have softened the truth until it no longer required anything from her. I stayed where I was. She wiped her face. Did you ever love me? Yes. Then how can you do this? Because loving you did not make what you did acceptable. You're acting like I cheated. I'm acting like you built intimacy with another man around degrading me. I never touched him. That isn't the defense you think it is. Her expression hardened. So you're perfect? No. Because I can make a list too. I stayed too long. I apologized when I should have set consequences. I protected your image because I was afraid of what honesty would force me to do. Those are my mistakes. She stared at me. You always know exactly what to say. No. I finally stopped saying what keeps the peace. I carried the last box to the door. She said, people will forget those texts. Maybe. They'll move on. Probably. You think they're all on your side now? I don't need them to be. That seemed to unsettle her more than anything else. For years, she had controlled me by making every disagreement about how other people would see us. If I objected publicly, I was insecure. If I objected privately, I was exhausting. If I stayed silent, I proved her point. Leaving the game meant she could no longer win it. The divorce process was not fast or pleasant. There were forms, disclosures, tense written exchanges, and decisions about property that had nothing to do with who was morally right. I paid what I was obligated to pay. Bridget did the same. Some mutual friends faded away because the truth made social events inconvenient. One couple invited both of us to a birthday dinner months later and acted offended when I declined. A few people apologized privately. Sienna did more than apologize once. She stopped laughing along when Bridget tried to turn the story into a joke. Eventually, their friendship ended. Graham remained exactly who he had always been. He showed up with coffee when I signed papers and did not say anything sentimental. Meredith helped me unpack the new place. At one point, she held up a stack of perfectly folded towels. You know this is alarming, right? It's efficient. It's evidence. Of what? That you've been 42 since birth. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Then I sat down on the floor beside an open box and admitted, I should have left sooner. Meredith put the towels on the counter. Yes. I looked at her. That's all. What do you want me to say? Something comforting. She sat across from me. Leaving late is still leaving. That was enough. Bridget lost more than a trip and a watch. She lost the certainty that she could decide what happened and then tell everyone what it meant. The friends who stayed close to her stopped reacting automatically to her version. Adrian disappeared once being the man who understood her no longer made him feel important. The people who had laughed at dinner now knew they had been used as an audience for something planned. As for me, I was embarrassed for a long time. I was angry too, but I was not broken. I had spent years believing strength meant absorbing the insult, paying the bill, and driving home quietly so nobody else felt uncomfortable. That was not strength. It was permission. Bridget thought my silence meant I was too weak to leave. It turned out I was just quiet while I was packing. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.